Hello, this is Brian Foster, and we are live on Kardec Radio Facebook page and Kardec Radio app on your iOS or Android phones. As I always say, this program is about Spiritism, and here is where we all started with Allan Kardec in Spiritism. Of course, he coded Spiritism in the 1850s in communications with many high spirits, not just one. Uh, and what he did is he wrote a series of 1,019 questions and asked multiple mediums throughout Europe and only codified the answers if they were the same or similar answers. And tonight, I have a great pleasure on talking to Sergio from SpiritismStudyorg. And Sergio is kind enough, he actually sent me his book. He can show you his book. And this is a study guide, which I thought was just a great idea, where actually the study guide lists really just the questions, and then people can talk about the questions and say what they think the answer would be, and then they can look at the answer. So I thought, what a marvelous way to get people talking. So I will be quiet, and I will actually let Sergio talk about, why he did this, his whole story. So go ahead, Sergio.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate, especially coming from someone that, as our viewers can see, took it really upon yourself the responsibility of enlighten self as a spirit and enlighten others. So sharing all that knowledge gained through your quest and the books that you see behind him. So if I can say a little bit about myself in the background, I was born in the United States, in Providence, Rhode Island, from Brazilian parents who were here temporarily. My dad was attending Brown University. So at 3 years old, the parents decided to return to Brazil. And there I lived and was raised for 21 years. Coming back to the United States in 1997, and without being part of my plan, ended up joining the U.S. Navy and stayed in up until last year for 21 years until I retire. Veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan wars. And in 2013, while residing in Tampa, I was able to bring my wife from Brazil to the United States and realized that I'm going to need a support network that, and throughout all that time that I was in the Navy, I kind of kept a little bit of distance from the Brazilian community because I felt that I had more to gain from being immersed, in the American way of life, learning from their culture, valuing the opportunity that they gave me, and really take it to heart and giving it back in some kind of way, right? So upon her arrival, I started looking for spiritist groups, and that's because she told me that she had been a spiritist in her childhood. Many other relatives in her family were spiritism, even mediums. And she was suffering from panic attacks at the time. And upon myself, I started researching methods that could help her, alternative treatments that could help her without being overly medicated. And then I ran across pages and forums that listed as spiritism, a spiritual healing. And I started researching in spiritism, and I asked her, well, weren't you a spiritist? And she said, yes, but I haven't been practicing. So I took it upon myself to read it. And the book that Brian just showed, the Spirits book, that was my first introduction into spiritism. And I started taking part of study sessions held by a local Spiritist center, which is at the time the Tampa Spiritist Society André Luiz. It was located on the Memorial Highway. Now it has moved over to the Hoover Boulevard. And with that sense of community that we develop, I started volunteering work as a worker of the center. And then I guess enlarging, the thirst for knowledge, So we're studying the Spirits book, studying the Gospel according to Spiritism, and started studying a little bit of the other books. We did sessions on mediumship, like beginnings of mediumship, and went from there. Um, I had become involved with different spiritist centers as well. But all this really awakened in me as much as yourself, Brian, is the responsibility to do more with the opportunity that God has granted us to incarnate, uh, and take advantage of those opportunities, and not just being selfish, and take advantage of the opportunity and not give it back. I felt that now upon my retirement, I think like, hey, maybe I can do something productive with the second half of my life and really be more interested in others and offer this lending, this helping hand. Uh, because when I consider that these opportunities that God gives us, uh, it can be just measured in material means. So if God gives you time, use that time for something productive. If God gives you, in my case, for example, I have my pension, I have my, my paycheck. I don't have to dedicate so much of my time for fulfilling my financial needs. So why cannot I dedicate my time to help others in their quest for spiritual knowledge? So one thing led to another, and I thought initially that best way to contribute it is to contribute it to already established institutions such as spiritist centers, and help and promulgate, and propagate the word. But I thought that there was perhaps some, there was something that was left out, and we were not making perhaps serious inroads in the American public because we were not perhaps being flexible enough in reaching them. So uh, I noticed this gap, and I decided, well, if I have the ability to do it, why not? Why not try something that will spark the interest in others? So we started with I guess, developing the study aid, which is one that Brian showed. I have in a paperback and hardcover, and there are a couple of reasons for it, but uh, the best one is the fact that, because right, and I only noticed this once I actually published. I have to say this to you. Once I publish and I receive a copy of it, and you start reading it but seeing only the questions, not seeing the answers, it really, to me, is sparked the idea that, like, well, how common, no, the commonality we have between faiths. All the other faiths are concerned about the same questions. We just have different words, different thematics, to answer, those questions. So, however, we say the word soul, and another faith may have like a different word for it. And as I mentioned to you, I started reading your books as I was introduced by a colleague in one of those study sessions, and the same messages, in essence, were given to different persons throughout history. So God wants all of us to do the same thing, which is become better versions of ourselves in order to be, productive agents of the providence. So, given that, I realized, I said, we need to be a little bit more flexible in order to reach the others who are not yet perhaps interested or have been reached by other efforts. I think I received a commentary here from, they say that the sound is perhaps kind of low. I don't know if you can raise it up.
Oh, I I didn't see that. I'm hearing you fine.
Okay.
Matthew, I know you're online. Hello, Matthew. How's the sound for you? I have see if it gives me a comment.
Okay.
I, um, is my sound okay? Is I know that you may be. Yeah, no, okay. Um,
Good.
let's just keep going. Hopefully, I can always try to increase the volume. Nope,
Sure.
Matthew says it's good.
It's good. Okay. Okay. Sorry
Yeah,
for
the message
interrupting.
is good. So just to make a point of what you're saying, I think it's a really great point. Is
Mhm.
we have the similar messages from Buddhism,
Yeah.
all sorts of different religions, and that's because these are the messengers from Jesus Christ, the governor of our planet, and it's just like trying to teach us. As Spiritism says, what's the major thing is follow the golden rule, and that's even from Socrates. It says he said the same thing, and so they're trying the spirit world's trying their hardest to get through our thick skulls, but we resist as well as possible,
Yeah.
and I think what you're doing is wonderful, Sergio, because really what Spiritism is, what's so different about Spiritism is there's a lot less fuzziness about heaven, why you're on earth, why good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people, why is there chaos in your life.
Yeah.
There's more certainty. It lets you understand the process. Anyway,
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. And one thing that did perhaps spark my interest in it even more so than any other faith that I have been exposed to, Brian, is the fact that initially this is expected, and I learned to accept that, is the discomforts that you acquire once you realize that perhaps I have not been doing enough. So,
yeah,
but I say that this is expected, and it will, I believe, as it happens to me, it will stay with you through your whole incarnation. But it should be a level of discomfort that is just enough to keep you doing more, but does not keep you from giving it up.
right,
Right? And it's to me, the thing that is the which I like to call what I like sometimes I like to call spiritism the consolation, because to me it was really consoling to know that the individuality of the soul continues after no physical death. God is all love, just and kind, so there is no punishment, but more of a, a chance to do it over. Really,
right.
that's
It's
what.
a guided learning course, is what I like to
Yeah.
say. It's a tailored curriculum for each of us. And can you imagine how complex that must be to take all the different variations and variables and things that can happen or not happen, that just with your life and interconnecting with other lives. I mean, just think like in mathematics, like Monte Carlo simulations, right? Of what can happen and the chances of, when the butterfly flaps its wing, a
Yes,
hurricane starts. It just shows you that we are just so uh, small within that universe, but it just that universe loves us.
it is. It is true, and that's one thing. Like I said, it brought me so much consolation that I think to myself is like, this consolation is not mine to keep. I have to find a way to spread it to others, because there are so many people, and I know some personally, from the service, that they have a nearly unlimited potential within themselves. They have the drive to succeed. They have the drive to do more, and they have the drive to help others too, but they lack direction. you know
Right.
so once we gain that direction, it's we're gonna succeed, we're gonna really go the distance. But I think it's as unfortunate as it is, but it is also a reality, but it's temporary in nature, is the need that we have to attach labels to ourselves, and be within established groups. So, for example, I say that right now we feel the need to be called a spiritist, you know, but we have at times we have to just keep it in the back of our head that this is a temporary thing. In the future, as we obey God's laws, there will be no group called the spiritists. We will just be children of God following His laws. So while at the same time labels unite a group, for the most part, he excludes all others. So I try to always remind people, like, listen, what is important is the essence of the message, not the institution that brought it, not the messenger that brought it, not the way that is presented, but the message itself. And
So, so can you go into for SpiritismStudy.org? So, how does that work then? I mean, what do people do? They go to your website, kind of go through the whole process of how someone like the listeners to this program who aren't next to a spiritual center or who wants to just stay from home, how do
Mhm.
they combine in this kind of online study?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question, Brian. So once I noticed, I started researching the amount of spiritist centers that we have in the United States, affiliated with the Federation. I noticed there's only 70 of them, roughly. And I plot them at the map, and I saw how the glaring need of, I guess, the amount of population that we do not yet cover. And fortunately or not, I saw that, of course, the regions who are most frequented by Brazilian immigrants are
Right.
the regions that have the most spiritist centers. That's very notable. But I saw, like, for example, in the Midwest, in most of the Midwest, there is no presence whatsoever. So I thought
Correct.
to myself, we have Brazilians there, but also, and more than anything else, we have Americans all over this country. And I think there is also a providential reason why we were perhaps, let's put it this way, educated elsewhere and brought over, to be able to propagate this message. So uh, once doing this research and seeing that glaring need for other centers everywhere, but knowing full well how difficult it is to establish a group, to establish a center, to register, and to find a way to secure funds to maintain that center, maintain that the light on, the doors open, all that stuff. It's a lot for some people. So I figured, isn't there must be a way that we can use technology to reach the people with the knowledge and the people with the need to learn. And I figured, like we have nowadays, it used to be taboo, but nowadays we have people getting their degrees online through
Correct.
colleges,
Correct. Yes.
which was very resisted upon, not more than like 10 or 20 years ago. It was very taboo. People did not put any credit behind it. So I realized, well, like, I'll create three prongs, a three-prong approach to this method. So I
Can I
developed,
stop you there just
yeah, sure, yeah,
one second, just so I can add some color to this?
yeah.
My wife was listening to a YouTube video in
Mhm,
Portuguese, and the guy was talking about, I think it was, I forgot who it was, talking about Chico, and Chico was eating dinner with a group of his friends,
mhm,
and then all of a sudden he stopped, and of course everyone around the table knew he was communing with spirits at the time,
mhm,
and then they waited politely, and then he looked up, and he says, "What's multimedia?"
mhm,
And of course, back then they go, no one had a clue. It's like in Brazil in some kind of a small town in
mhm,
Minas Gerais, and they go, well, I don't know, maybe it's like TV and film. It's just lots of media. And they goes, well, multimedia. That's how spiritism is going to be spread.
mhm.
So
It is.
I'll
It,
let you carry on. I didn't want to interrupt you too much, but I
no,
thought
no, no.
people would like that.
Not at all. And it's something that I felt, of course, if we realize that Earth is nothing more than a poor copy of the astral city,
Right.
then we know that there is a providential reason for this technology that is being, created. So I figured that we cannot, as much as it's comfortable to read from physical books, we cannot, neglect the fact that we do have this technology available to us. So let's put it to good use.
Right. And I just wanted to ask a question. Someone just left a comment. Was Chico talking about it before it was invented? And I don't know that answer. Maybe you do, Sergio, but I'm sure he talked about it before it was generally known
Mhm.
what multimedia was. So, I just sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to answer that question.
No problem. And I think, like I say, I cannot quote for sure, but I think it was because if you remember, for example, André Luiz, who I guess gave us the book, Nosso Lar, or City, Astro City, described the city in great detail. And many of those things that were described back in, I want to say in the 40s, right, 1940s, didn't
Yeah.
come into fruition until decades later. So
Right.
I suspect they was decades ahead of its time.
Yes.
So so the thing, so I realized, like, well, let's create a method that we can pair people within their available time, those that have the knowledge, with those who don't have a center nearby, or do have a center nearby, but would like to study at their own terms, would like to study a different book that is offered, at the center, and or would like to be on a different pace, or really would like just to be a one-on-one, because people perhaps feel more comfortable doing that way. So aside from creating, and so people can, the whole object of this project is people can, while being away, or if they're unable to attend a center personally, or even in addition to, they can schedule or book a session one-on-one, could be a 30 minutes or be a 1 hour, with myself or one of our volunteers. And Brian has kindly
Yeah,
just joined us.
I'm a volunteer, so I'll be happy to help anyone.
Thank you. So, and so that means that people that perhaps have been just recently introduced to Spiritism, or even seasoned veterans, but so they don't know, how do I start? Where do I go? Like, how I this card deck is kind of a tough read because it was written in the 1850s. So the vocabulary, yes, it's not commonplace anymore, but I feel at ease with it, and I feel that we should elevate ourselves to the level of the message and not try to oversimplify the message, because sometimes a lot of meaning is lost if we do that. Uh, so people can schedule those one-on-one sessions. Uh, those study aids are meant to be used in study groups because those the insights know the rational thinking, as you mentioned. And aside from that, I decided to create what I call a Kardec after lunch initiative. And the idea is to reach people during their daily routine. So I do a reading of each one of Kardec's works. So I start with Spirit's book on Monday, and I end with Genesis on Friday. I read and comment for 15 minutes one of his books sequentially. So hopefully within,
Now, is that on your website, or is that how do they listen to this?
it's on our Facebook page. So the
Okay.
sessions are held live, where people can pose questions, comments, or suggestions. But also the videos are available for people who like to watch it later, and they can still post questions, comments, or suggestions. But the idea is, if you perhaps you benefit more if you're really listening while you're going through your daily routine. And the reason I say this is because think with me for a second. It is very easy for us to be a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a Buddhist, while you are attending a service in a house of worship, because everybody is expected to follow the same set of the same behavior, the same conduct, right?
Right.
But as soon as you leave there and you go to your workplace or you go to your house, and you kind of, well, no one is watching me here, so I don't have to behave, in my best manners. So uh, perhaps by reaching people during their daily routine, and for them to listen Kardec, perhaps they will spark interest in reading Kardec, and getting their knowledge directly from the source. Because I put a disclaimer on each one of my videos, and I ask forgiveness for, of course, my accent, um, my ignorance, which will always stay with us until we reach perfection, but also the inadequacy of my skills in conveying the consolation. But I've always asked, like, listen, I'm trying to fulfill my responsibility towards the Creator of enlightening myself, but at the same time helping my brothers and sisters. But you cannot delegate, you who has listened to me, you cannot delegate your spiritual enlightenment, your morals and your intellectual enlightenment to others.
Well,
So,
yeah, I
right?
think that's an excellent point, and even Kardec talks about it.
Yes.
Of and the fact is that now Buddhism is an exception. They really believe in reincarnation
Uh-huh.
and and karma. But I mean, until people understand that for every action is a reaction. In other words, karma is real, and you do it. What you do in this life determines the status of your next life. Until that becomes common knowledge and part of every religion, it's just like you said. People can leave their house of worship, wherever that is, temple, whatever, and they think, well, whatever I say or do, no one knows. Spiritism shows you that we are constantly surveyed. We are under constant surveillance. That's kind of a hard part about being a spiritist. When you recognize that you have no privacy, your thoughts are out there, always evaluated. They're always recorded. And it's not just spiritism has said that. You cannot believe the amount of people who've had near-death experiences who say,
Mhm.
I went to this meeting and they played back scenes from my life, and they played back how other people thought what I was telling them. How do you do that without having, a database full of everything? It's like when the NSF, right? And they said, how can we record everybody's call? And the
Mhm.
question was, how do you find a needle in the haystack? The question was to create a haystack, right? That's why all our telephone calls and everything are recorded. But
Mhm.
spirit world's even more efficient than that, right? We're all tagged, and but this is a tough revelation to get used to, because even when I was younger, I thought, well, I believe in God, but they're far away, right? It's like we're these carbon-based life forms, and do they really care about us? And like one of my big concerns was what you said earlier, is it was really a relief to say that we are who we are, even when we get rid of this body. Our personality, our
Yeah.
character is intact.
Yes, and it's very how to say, sometimes it's discomforting at the beginning to, I guess, once they break, or they shatter that dream that, well, once I die, I'll become an angelic figure, and all
Right,
this knowledge will be imparted into me, instantaneous. Like, that's not the case. You
right.
are no different than what you are before your death. So, so that is just, to me, is just one more call to, hey, listen, better yourself while you have the chance, because although, perhaps, if I can put it this way, although the cadre of instructors in the afterlife is much more qualified than the ones we have here presently, the opportunities for enlightenment, you know, in the afterlife are not the same. So there is a need for incarnation that cannot be, I must say, cannot be replaced.
Right. And
Yeah, we have to go through it.
and exactly. And my theory is that the reason we need this is because in the spirit world, if you're in one of the levels of heaven, you live in this atmosphere of love and this great background, and you work in a job you like. And as you learn, you're learning exciting things. And that's
Mhm.
all wonderful. But if we are held on to an ideal, or our personality is a type that we still let primitive emotions up, it really takes life in the physical plane where we are assaulted emotionally with the lessons we need. That is really why we need the physical plane, is
Mhm.
to change our character. Maybe not to supplement our knowledge as much, right? Because we'll get much more knowledge in the spirit world, just as you said, Sergio.
Yes.
But I think it's really to modify our character. And that's why we go through the trials we must go through.
And not just that, but one thing that came to mind right now, as some of you know, perhaps not all of them, but we are grouped in the afterlife by affinity of thoughts, morals, and intellect. So that means, mostly, if you're perhaps not aware of it, other than the lower regions, as soon as you ascend to a more, healthy state, you don't have much of like the opposing, views.
Right. Yes.
So, and as much as there is, of course, a lot of growth that can be gained from that lack of opposition, that lack of opposition, we know also sometimes it breeds, or it develops into what nowadays, I guess, a common term is called echo chamber. So, for example, in the lower regions, if all you hear is that right there, you're going to believe that that is the truth. So, even Kardec invites us to analyze and judge the merits of each one of the message that we receive from the spirits, and telling us full well, himself and the spirits telling us that there is a providential reason for it. You are going to be exposed to the wrong and to the right.
Right. Very
And
well said. Yep.
it's for your own enlightenment, for your own development, for that you have to grow from being able to judge what is good, what is bad, and knowing that that will change in time. What was right 10 years ago will be wrong, 10 years from now.
Right.
And also, it varies according to the environment. What is right in one section of the world is completely wrong in another. What is right for children to act, to behave, is completely unacceptable for adults. But it may become acceptable again once you're an elderly person, and going through dementia or something like that. So it is for our own betterment that we have to accept some of this, like I say, this opposition, this attrition, because that's what we're gonna enable our growth. Um,
Exactly.
and one thing that perhaps keeps people off, there are two things perhaps that I think keep people off from embracing spiritism. One is that level of responsibility, that discomfort that people saying, like, whoa, when they read, so the more I know, the more I owe. Basically, like, yeah,
Right.
the more knowledge you have about how the system works, the more you are responsible for, right? And then we realize that we are going to receive credits for every good action that we've done, but we also receive the merits for every bad action, and every bad action that resulted from our neglecting of doing good. So it is a long bill, perhaps. So uh, people, and then people see, like, well, who's our role model? A role model is Jesus.
Right. He's the if you want to talk about a perfect spirit, that's your role model right there.
And then they think, oh, I'll never get there, and then people
Right.
give up right away. But
Yes.
one thing that I was exposed to today, and I was exposed a day ago when I was posting in our online group, is question number 909 from the Spirit's book. And it says, in my translation, says this: are an individual's own efforts enough to vanquish his or her bad tendencies? And the answer from the Spirit is yes. A very small effort is often all that is needed. It is the will that is missing. And it is
Right.
quite astounding how few of you make any serious effort. So,
Well, that is so revealing, and that is so true,
yeah,
and it's really, and you see that over and over again in books, even by Chico, and uh, uh, Psychograph by Devaldo Franco with Joanna Downs. She's written many books about that, and it's really, and she also expanded on that, and she goes, look, if you analyze your life, don't dwell on your past mistakes. That's just
yeah,
an arrow out of the quiver. That arrow's gone.
mhm,
Analyze it and move on and make small steps.
yeah,
And it took Jesus billions, who knows how,
yes,
years to get where he is. We're not expected to be perfect spirits in this life. Look, the spirit world looks at us like, we're kindergartners or first graders. We're going
yeah,
to make mistakes. And sometimes the mistakes we make are the best things that can happen to us, right? We
true,
learn.
true,
And it's really the small things. I was talking about this the other day, is you can read the spirit's book and you can think, okay, yeah, I'm going to be, look, I'm not going to be so materialistic. I'm not going to have to buy that nicest house. I'm not going to go buy that nicest car and get in the debt. And when you analyze it, you can make those changes. But really, is the harder ones are these little habits we have, right?
mhm,
Of going to work, and then someone talks about someone, go, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Then you join in and you have malicious gossip. And it's like, oh, and then I get home during the day and it's like, what did I just do? I should have said, no, let's talk about good things about, that person. And sometimes it's the little habits but the little habits are really the ones that are rewiring your brain, and they really make an effect.
yes. And one thing that came to mind today during a presentation by Jana Machado, or local Love and Wisdom, Spiritist Center, is exactly that fact. She touched on question 909, and it came to mind. And I have to say, my greatest merit in this world is not coming up with original thoughts, but being able to repeat the wisdom that I was created by spirits way more elevated than I am. So what was inspiring to me was saying that perhaps we should not neglect to enlist the help of those who love us when we're trying to endeavor to do better, even if it's just small steps, because breaking a bad habit is tough.
Yeah.
But if we try it by ourselves, like I said, we're going to create a plan, but the only one that is aware of that plan is your own self, and there's no one else, keeping tabs on you. Then who's going to know if you fail? Who's going to know if you're going astray? So people sometimes, especially in their spiritual journeys, they tend to neglect their providential help, their assistance. Enlist the assistance of of your spirit guides, your guardian angels, but also of those loved ones, your friends, your religious leaders, your relatives, and then ask them, and please keep tabs on me, because I really committed to make this change, but I
Well,
need some type of accountability. I need people to tell me, like, hey, am I doing this right? Right. So
and that's all good. In fact, I was just reading Mechanics of Mediumship. I think it was one that just translated into English in January 2019, and they were talking about thought forms, right? Thoughts, and how important that, okay, in the spirit world, thought is action. It's much, but even
yes.
in our physical location, thought has power. Thought controls your body. Thought controls everything, and just like you say you enlist people to help, and then in your thoughts, those thoughts go out to your friends too. They'll subconsciously they'll know that you want help, and if they help you, then that creates a positive thought form and a positive feedback loop. And you're also saying, God, please help me. My guardian spirit, please help me. And you give permission to the spirits that will also help you. You've got a whole phalanx of
Yeah.
people that will help you, you know, raise spiritually. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is the effect. It's tough at first, but once you really let go of anger and you really invest yourself in the forgiveness, I like your point of view on this, but I feel so less stress and harmony in my life. It's amazing.
Yes. Just like I say, there are no coincidences. But just 2 days ago, also something that came in, into my mind, and I posted on Facebook. I posted in Portuguese, unfortunately, but it says this: complaining about others' behavior is to neglect the opportunity to correct your own.
Right.
So it is something that Jesus actually says to Peter, if I'm not mistaken. Because Peter, I guess, is looking at some people doing wrong things.
Yeah, that was in, I think, Jesus in the Home he was talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
go on. Yep.
And Peter's kind of like, Jesus, ain't you seeing this? Ain't you gonna say something? And Jesus is
And
like,
that guy was rude to me. Yeah.
yeah. And Jesus is like, what about you, Peter?
Yeah.
So we have to be more concerned about really what good we can do instead of trying to avoid the bad that others are perhaps creating, because the bad that they're creating right now, sometimes it's needed. Not saying that everything is needed. There is a mix of it, what's needed and what's not. But what we can always do is to diminish the suffering of others, right? So, and for us to do that, we have to allow their growth, and understand that we are at many different levels, like an infinite number of levels of growth. And while we enjoy, I guess, the freedom to grow ourselves, we have to allow others, and respect their free will. It's one thing that I find is so but I guess it is so beneficial, but also it's hard to put into practice, is um, accepting the necessity of free will. So I accept that, and God respects it, to the utmost level. He created us, He gave us free will, and respecting the way we use it. He expects us to use it well, but He allows you the opportunity to grow from the experience, a trial and error. And
Right.
we
And
have to
and when
respect
people
that.
ask, why is the world so chaotic? Why is the world
Yeah.
so cruel? There's one answer. God gives us free will. He
Yes.
lets us be as nice or terrible as we choose.
Yes, yes, and that's what I say. Like, so it to me, Spiritism is consolation, and I think there are many people there that could benefit from it. And I just trying to do my part in helping those people reach it. But the idea of the whole thing is, it's temporary. As soon as perhaps I'm able to instill in a person, the knowledge, or the belief that he or she is able to seek and you shall find, read this book, put the effort behind understanding what it says, and furthermore allow it to change your thoughts, your words, and your deeds. And I guarantee that you will not regret one single second that you're going to spend on it.
You can say it better than that, because again, the message that was told to Reverend G. Owen and Andre Luis Chico Xavier
Mhm.
is, if you can use your time wisely on Earth, right?
Yes.
Because that's where you'll make the great leaps, and
Mhm.
that's where you can really modify your character. And if you can understand that there's immature souls, there's a little bit less immature souls, there's maybe some mature souls among us, and when people do what you think are stupid things, that's just like thinking a first grader did something stupid. That's just what they're going to do, and you
Yeah.
can forgive them. It doesn't mean you don't have to be passive about it. You can try to correct it, but you don't have to be anger and let that primitive emotion out on that person.
Yeah.
And but if you can make progress, it's just like Sergio saying, if you can make progress here in this life, you are setting yourself up in the spirit world to get more education, because it's like anywhere else. This is kind of the truth of heaven around us is, if it's just like in school. If you're a student who is trying, the teacher's going to give you more help, even if you're failing. But if you have the right attitude and you're trying, you're
Mhm.
going to get more help. And when you're in the spirit world, you're going to get more help, because you are actively trying to improve yourself. It's the trajectory that's important. It's not where you are at the moment. It's the
Yes.
fact that you're striving for improvement. And that just makes, is in the Reverend Z. Valen's books, one of the spirits said, angels, and high spirits, we cry too. We look at what you're doing and we go, oh no.
Yeah.
But then we're happy when you do something well. It's
Yeah.
like parents with a child. And so that love is always around us. There's a forgiveness and love always around us. But if we can demonstrate that we are just really making an attempt, we don't have to be perfect. We can fall back. Everybody does. But it's just, you will be set up. You won't believe how much you'll be set up in the next life. And again, uncannily, it's a lot like life in a company, right? If who wants it, who wants an employee that doesn't want to learn, wants to stay the same,
Mhm.
and doesn't work hard? No, they want
Mhm.
someone who's a thirst for knowledge, loves what they do, and wants to get with the program, and is aggressive in learning. And if you have that intellectual curiosity, that is exactly what you need.
Yes, yes, and it's something that people unfortunately always associate there with material gains, but once they're able to climb out of the materialistic only views, they will understand that coffins don't have drawers. You cannot take anything
Right.
that you bought here. Even pharaohs tried, but I don't believe they succeeded. So as Jesus said, like, don't stash your treasures on earth while they can be robbed, they can rot away. The only treasures you're gonna take with you is the enlightenment that you acquire while on earth, like moral, intellectual, spiritual. So work on those, and please work on those while you have time, because you will have many other chances, but I guarantee that your time in the afterlife and the period of time you're going to spend in perhaps not so pleasant regions will be severely diminished if you accept the responsibility and you take it upon yourself to be a better person today than you were yesterday. It does not take no Herculean efforts. It
Right.
just has to do a little bit at a time, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Set
yeah, so
rational goals, reasonable goals. And
yeah.
the spirits have told us, and I even talk about this in my book, Heaven and Below, where they'll say, look, this here, a guy who was a lowly clerk is now instructing the president of the company
Hmm.
what it means to be a good spirit, right? Because in our culture, it's almost, you are graded on the amount of material goods you have, and of
Hmm.
course that is exactly opposite. It's really, and you're only going to live on earth a short time.
Yeah.
Your life, your real life, is in the spirit world. Your immortal life is in the spirit world, and that's the currency you really want to accumulate. Is just like you said, Sergio, is transforming your soul, your spirit, and
Hmm.
working for the good. And it doesn't mean you have to be a dull character. Um, it just means you have to be enlightened.
Yes. And if I don't know if you allow me to change a little bit of the topic, it's just
Yep.
because yeah, we talk a lot about like to great lengths about myself and the project, but I do have a curiosity about your journey because, like I say, I feel an obligation to do something for the Americans, in English. So, in your case, and if you mind me asking, is so how your journey has changed in your retirement. How does the priorities or your reach, your scope of influence have changed, and how do you think that that can benefit on your future projects?
Yeah, so I've just been retired since April, so I haven't done as much as I want. So it's like you're saying, I feel a little guilty. I haven't
Mhm.
done more, but I've been trying to really increase my production of vlogs, of videos, and I'm
Yeah.
putting them on YouTube and BitChute channel. And so I used to do like one maybe two a week at most. Now I'm trying to do 3 or 4 a week. Trying to make them better. I'm trying to, I apologize for some of my poor production qualities.
Mhm.
And of course, then I found you and want to volunteer for you. Um, so I'm trying to, I think, I feel good with the books that I've written. I don't think I have another book and I've actually been told, stay with what you've done as far as the books. And now what I'm really trying to do is get things on video. So I upload these videos, these hour-long videos from Sunday night, upload them on Monday. But then I try to make 2 or 3 other videos, 5, 10 minute videos
Okay.
on different aspects. And so I'm hoping people subscribe to my BitChute and YouTube channels. It's on my blog, nwspiritism.com. You can click on that subscribe button. Click on that link to the YouTube channel or BitChute, and then subscribe. But and then tell your friends about it. And then also, Sergio, what you're doing is great. So if we can get people involved, I would love to help them on a periodic basis and go more and more. So I'm trying to find other ways. Like I was so excited when you and I talked. That's why I wanted
Mhm.
to do this video and just just any way we can. And if you have other ideas that or anyone else listening to us, put them
Yeah.
in comments. People give me good comments in my YouTube and channel, and people will write me with questions. In fact, I've been asked saying, well, in July 2019, how's that Chico's prophecy coming? I said, well, I'm going to talk about that after July 2019. That 50-year prophecy had.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I'm trying to do as many things as possible, uh, and we'll just see. I'm is and I think I'm in comment on this, Sergio, is when we open our heart and our minds up to try and do more, inspiration will come to us, right? Ideas will come to us. And if we can be open and we follow those ideas, because they're given to us by higher spirits, most probably, we can helpfully do a lot.
Yes, yes. No, I believe in that wholeheartedly. But one thing though, and it's not to perhaps rob a little bit of the positivity, but one thing that a thought came to mind when someone asked me, like, well, how come nothing that I do, I never get it right, you know I can never succeed with my projects. And I thought a little bit about it, and to me, and that's a personal view, but to me the response was, God is in charge of creating opportunities, but God does not guarantee you success. And it's not in your benefit, it's not in our benefit to succeed at the first try of anything. So God also wants us, to put effort in, put perseverance. I remember there's a good, a very important passage on the Spirits book by Kardec, that he says, like, it takes about 3/4 of a lifetime to produce a genius. It takes like 10 years to produce a mediocre doctor. How can someone just take spiritism under the arm, and think that they're going to succeed in a matter of no years, or a few months or not? So it does require effort. It does require a lot of failures. But if we have the good intentions, which it's only God can judge that, uh, and we persevere in what we do, we will come out better of it. It doesn't matter if we fail or we succeed in our eyes.
Right. And there was a great passage, I think, in uh, Spiritual Wisdom, Missives of Truth, with Chico Xavier and Herculano Perez. And he wrote each chapter was based on and he put this in the newspaper during his day in Brazil. And someone asked, exactly what you said. Why is everything so hard? Why is life so hard? And the answer was, well, if you expect your life to be easy, if your friends aren't talking bad about you, if work is too easy for you, if you have no money problems, right, and if you never experience blocks in the road, well, you shouldn't be on earth, right?
That's true.
We're here to
Yeah.
experience hurdles and obstacles, just like you're saying, is to continually test us and teach us to be flexible. And the answer is, why is this so difficult? Why do we have to change ourselves so much?
Mhm.
And this is what I think so revealing in the information from the spirits of Reverend Ziva Owen, because they really talk about
Mhm.
what power you have from your thoughts in the spirit world. You are, even there was a message from Paul saying your job here is to become an omniscient type God, right? You should act. So we need to be able to use our minds in any circumstances, no matter how rude people are to us or other things happen. We need to think clearly and use our thoughts always for the good, because your power is going to be more immense than you can even believe, greater than any fantasy novel you've ever read.
Yes, yes. People that know me personally, they know that I do a lot of parallels with movies, especially superhero movies, because I think we can perhaps relate better in this way. But one thing that, if you let me say so before I guess our time is over, but the reason of those projects of mine, it's not so can people can recognize my name, you can recognize my website, my project. The only thing I would like for it to spread, and it's not even the word of spiritism, but it's just that I can take someone, and allow him or herself to take them the transformation from being a passive agent of the providence and become an active one. So instead of perhaps just listening to videos, which knowledge is perhaps always beneficial, but knowledge is just a one way.
Right. It's got to be
Let's
the catalyst for something, is what you're saying.
Yes, let's take it upon ourselves. Let's take the opportunity to listen to find the knowledge source that you're comfortable with,
Right.
and pair up with him or her on the time that they have available, and now you can actually study together. So for example, I was stoked to hear that after reading your books, I could actually, take a little bit of time that you have available and talk to you one-on-one on the books that you wrote, because I do have questions about it, and I think you benefit us both. Of course, me from learning what you meant, and you from having to explain, because that's how we grow. So once we're able to, of course, expand our reach a little bit more and be able to, initiate people in this endeavor, then they can start their own spiritist groups, their own, spiritual groups, anything to propagate the message that you are loved, you were created by God out of His will, you have a purpose in this world, and you have the means to do it. Do not believe for a moment that you are incapable of it, because God does not create any defective product, but He
Right.
creates a product that's able to perfect itself.
I know, amazing, isn't it?
Yes,
I
it
mean,
is.
that's exactly true. So, and I think in the future, so after you finish my book, Heaven Below, let's have another conversation and let's talk about it, what you thought and so forth. But the main thing on this program again is everyone, please go to SpiritismStudyorg. Tell your friends about it. If you really want to connect with someone to talk, ask questions at your leisure, to study, something. Um, Contact Sergio. Get on his site. You know, um, give us your last pitch on SpiritismStudy.org,
Sure,
Sergio, please.
sure. Thank you. So it's not my study. I did not on purpose. On purpose, I did not develop a curriculum. I'm not gonna hold you to a set of, a number of sessions. They're always free. They always will be free, and you can even choose. Of course, I have a set of books that I'm familiar with. So, but you can choose the books that your tutor is familiar with and comfortable with teaching, and you can discuss those. So you're not limited to just the Spirit's book and the Gospel according to Spiritism. We don't do and of course, any sort of mediumship. But the point is individual study sessions, one-on-one, at your own time and schedule and at your own pace. So what I like to say is it's your study. I'm just tagging along with it. And if you're not, if you, after a few sessions you're not comfortable with the way I try to portray or try to pass on the consolation on to you, you can choose another one of our volunteers. No, the choice is all up to you. However, know this though: you cannot delegate, the task of enlightened yourself to others. We're only here to assist, but you are responsible for uh, taking up the opportunity and responsible for the consequences that come out of the decisions that you made. It's unfortunate that's the only way that we grow. Right.
Wonderful. No, I hope everyone here, please share this video to different Facebook pages. Please tell your friends about studyspiritism.org. That would be wonderful to spread the message. And I see Sandra thanking us both for our discussion, and Luciana, boa noite to you. Must be listening to us here. So this is wonderful. And those on Kardec Radio, let me tell you, tell your friends about Kardec Radio too. You can hear this program every Sunday night at this regular time, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, all time zones in between around the world. We will come to you with more of these programs. Tell your friends about Kardec Radio. You just look up Kardec Radio on your iOS Apple phone or your Android phone. You can download the app for free. Get on Facebook page. Go to Sergio's Facebook page. Go to his website. It'll give you links to his Facebook page. And go to mine, Spiritism, the Spirit World Around Us, and my blog, nwspiritism.com. So hopefully, with the more we can get together and give people tools. So, because everyone has different ways. Just as Sergio said, everyone has different ways they can learn, right? And some people read the Spirit's book and they go, it's too heavy for me. And so there's other things that we can do for you. So whatever enables you to accumulate knowledge that you want to accumulate as efficient as possible. Tell us what if we're doing something wrong or right, or you have suggestions too.
Yes,
So I
thank
want
you.
to thank you, Sergio. It's been a wonderful. We've gone through our hours. Thanks everyone for listening, and I'll post this on our YouTube channel, BitChute channels by Monday.
Thank,
Thanks. It was been a wonderful discussion, and we will have more of these discussions.
thank you, Brian. Godspeed to
Okay.
all.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.